Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today I've got some r/entitled parents for you all. As per usual, I'll be narrating the post, giving you my opinions, and I hope you do the same down in the comments below. And without further ado, let's jump right into it. Panda Hails. My cousin sends our family her child's Christmas list each year, and it's completely insane. Every November, I, 24 female, receive a dreaded text in our extended family group chat from my cousin, 35 female. The text includes a highly detailed Christmas list from her 5-year-old, who we'll call Penny. The items are always expensive, obscure, and very hard to find. Additionally, she expects us to reply with the item that we have purchased, then sends back the updated list with that item checked off. Each year, there's exactly the number of items for people in the chat, and once people hurry to claim the cheapest ones, you're left with the $100 to $300 items to choose from. My cousin is an only child and her mom caters to this, as well as her dad, but the rest of us are getting pretty sick of it. Last year, someone didn't follow the list and said they'd already bought something else in the group chat, and she responded, "That isn't what Penny wants this year," which made them feel guilty for not adhering to this insanity. Now, some backstory. Penny has autism, is nonverbal, and the sweetest child ever. My cousin and her husband are good parents for the most part, but they're a little self-focused. For example, they're both collectors of things like manga and toys and lose their minds if Penny touches their things. And the home is full of their collections. They have an entire room dedicated to this, which they call the fun room, and their daughter isn't allowed in. Not so fun. Now here's the kicker. The items on the list are almost always part of a collection, either vintage certain edition this or that, and tons of Beanie Babies. They have started a toy collection similar to their own for Penny, but it's a lot of things I've never seen her enjoy or show much interest in. One year, the most excitement she showed was for the box, and she loves Disney movies and Paw Patrol, but has never gotten gifts related to these things. Also, we suggested some gifts like a toy kitchen or something interactive and sensory, and they shut that down in favor of expensive Lego Star Wars Lego. She's 5. I know damn well that's going straight to Daddy's fun room. This year, I'm getting her an Ariel doll and a matching dress. I'm stopping the madness. Yeah, if they're asking for things that cater directly to their collections as things their daughter wants, but you know damn well she's never gonna be able to play with them, that's kind of fucked up because that means that they're just simply using their daughter's autism as a way to add to their collections and use sympathy points. That's unbelievably fucked up for them to do. And yeah, the writing is certainly on the wall if she opens a gift and it's definitely one of the parents' quote-unquote collectibles and she has no interest in it beyond the box it comes in, then yeah, something's going on here. I think breaking the norm and putting some sensory toys in there that the child would actually enjoy would probably definitely help shine a light to anyone else who might have suspicions but too afraid to ask about it. I moved across the world to be closer to my mom with husband, but it didn't work out. So we had to move back and she is really upset and can't be happy for me. I grew up in Europe and did all my schooling in the UK, met my husband here who's British. My mom is Canadian and moved back to Canada 8 years ago. A couple of years ago, my husband and I talked about maybe moving to Canada to try it out for a couple of years and have kids there. And my mom would be close, which would be nice. A year ago, after a lot of admin and costs, we finally looked at the plunge and moved across the ocean. Our jobs were still in the UK, so we were working remote hours, but we made it work and got to see my mom and the rest of the family quite a lot, which was nice. About 9 months in, we realized that we weren't as happy there than we had been in the UK, and my husband was really homesick. Our jobs were also still in London, so we decided that after a year, it was time to move back. I spoke to my mom about our unhappiness at the time, and she's the one that suggested us moving back. But now that we have moved back, about 6 weeks ago, she's extremely bitter. Every time I mention something positive about my new house, or being happy about being close to my friends again, she gets upset. She barely talks to me and cries all the time. When I mention something good, she says I'm rubbing it in, and we get into an argument. It's now gotten so bad that she describes it as hurting way more because we came in the first place than if we had never come. She described it as, it's like you guys give a toy to a child and then take it away. Of course they'll be sad. She also blames us moving back all on my husband and barely speaks to him now. Is this normal? I feel like she's being selfish and we moved across the world to be closer to her for a year, and to her, it's worse than if we hadn't gone at all. What can I do? Honestly, you just gotta let her sulk and go through the few stages of grief and she'll be back to normal. She's probably just really caught up on the fact that she's just, missing you guys and is being a bit dramatic, but I guarantee, give it maybe 6 months and everything will be a-okay and she'll be excited when you guys visit for holidays. But if she doesn't get over it, continues to be argumentative, continues to blame you for simply wanting your husband to be more comfortable and not homesick, then hey, that's an entirely different story and perhaps you should explore kind of limiting contact with her. I would say only go no contact if she becomes destructive, but limiting contact if she's just being very argumentative is always a viable option, at least in my eyes. Ron Ellies. That one time I realized my mother was an entitled mother. I went to a school where students had to wear a uniform and sometimes take part in ceremonies. They could take place whenever, but always outside. At the beginning of my second year, we had a ceremony in November. Our chief, the woman responsible for my section, I don't know how to qualify her in English, told us our parents were invited to come and see us, even eat with us at lunch after, but we couldn't go out with them after the ceremony. I called my parents to inform them of this, and my mother told me that if we couldn't go out afterwards, then there was no point for her and my father to come to the ceremony. I tried to argue that it was the same for everyone, but she kept pushing, telling me that they could make an exception for us. I was 18 and really willing to not displease her, so I went and asked my chief. She was new at her job, so I guess she wanted to please the students herself, so she agreed to let me go out with my parents after the ceremony, but I should not advertise it towards my fellow comrades. The day of the ceremony came. It was cold and rainy. I was super tired already. The ceremony consisted in us remaining on our feet, not moving except when we received the order to, for what felt like hours. Some students fell off and replacements took their place. The replacements were the students whose parents couldn't come. I ended up fainting in the mud myself, and so another student took my place. My uniform was too stained for me to go back anyway, so I watched the rest with the crowd. But I couldn't find my parents until the very end, after my classmates sung our section's hymn. When I found my parents, I was all smiley because I found the situation funny. I was already feeling better, but my mother blew up, telling me I made them come to the ceremony for nothing, that I purposely failed to receive attention or to get out of the ceremony because I didn't want to do it, that I was an embarrassment. My father was silent, and I was ashamed. I suggested a way for us to get out without being spotted by my classmates, and my mother told me I was an idiot and that everyone would see us. We took another road out. We went for a silent lunch in town, and my parents drove me back to school. In the car, my mom threw me a package on the face, telling me she didn't know if I deserved it. It was a soap of a great brand that she bought me for a celebration we could not have together a few days prior due to me being at school. I got back to my dorm feeling numb. I realized I wasn't surprised at my mom's outburst. I've often felt ashamed by her for not being well, either physically or emotionally, because she always believes I complain for attention. I'm not no contact with my mom, but I never complain to her ever. She often complains she wishes we would be closer, but I don't want to try. That day flipped a switch in me. I can only share the good times with her. Whenever we disagree or I'm not feeling well in any way possible, I'll just upset her. So I will just face whatever difficulties that come without her, like I have for the past years. I mean, in the moment that was supposed to be celebrating your accomplishments, your mother used that to berate you as an embarrassment. So yeah, I don't blame the fact that it's permanently changed your outlook on your mother to the point where you see her as being entitled. It's also quite a damn shame that while you haven't gotten no contact with her, you don't feel like you can express any kind of discomfort or any kind of issue that you're having within your life in fear of being branded a complainer, and can only share positive things with her. It is certainly a shame that you're in this position. I do hope that things get better with your mother, but honestly, it probably won't. And hopefully your relationship with your father's better, because that would definitely not be fun if both your parents had this outlook on your life. Mortatrox, entitled dad and brother try to control a trip they won't be going on. Background: I, 20 male, have been having a rough year. I've been attending college and before recently was on a streak of poor or failing grades. That lasted 2 quarters through a combination of burnout, poor management, and plain old depression. This has delayed my advancement to a bachelor's to the next year. Luckily, I'm doing much better this quarter due to a lighter load and making extra sure I don't start slipping. So recently, the 4th My Hero Academia movie released in theaters. I've been following the manga for about 2 years, and I've been rewatching it with my mother recently, so we were planning on going to see it. However, I was only about 3 to 4 weeks into the quarter, and I was paranoid about slipping back into the previous 2 quarters. So I delayed it until my midterms were over, and I was confident that I wasn't just going to go 3 for 3 and truly screw myself over. The issue is that I wasn't aware that the anime movies don't stay in theaters as long as normal movies. In the week or 2 that I had put it off, the theaters near me had already stopped showing it. However, there was one place still showing it a couple hours away, so not all hope was lost. I'm still doing training for my driver's license, so I made a plan to go bus hopping to go see it. It would take a while, but it wasn't like I had anything pressing besides work or school. The woes of having all your friends at distant colleges. My mother had only reached season 6, the movie takes place early in season 7, so I was just going to see it now and watch it again with her once it went on to streaming services. I informed my family of my plans, and Entitled Dad immediately declares that it's not going to happen. He made some decent points, like the possibility of being stranded if something goes wrong and the bus fails. Or the cost of the bus fare, how hard it would be to reach me if something went wrong. But the core of his argument was literally just, it's dumb, in referencing a time last year when I took a train to visit a friend a city over and the bus was late, resulting in a delay. He twisted this into me being an hour late and needing to be picked up before I reached the destination because of that. I was always going to be picked up at the last leg. It was either that or walk 15 minutes, refusing to listen to what had actually happened. Upon hearing this, my mother offered to just drive together since she did not care as much as I had assumed about seeing the movies in the correct chronological order. We eventually worked out a time, I bought the tickets, and everything seemed fine. I made it clear to her that she didn't need to go for me, and I thought that was that. Well, then Entitled Dad found out. He immediately goes straight to me to repeat that this is dumb and shouldn't be happening. The problem is that all his valid arguments from before were nullified by the fact that I was going with someone else and not relying on the bus system. So all he had left was saying, it's dumb to drive an hour and a half to see a movie. And of course, what I'm about to get to next. The counter to the first point, that my brother drives longer to see his concerts on the regular, was met with a simple, they're not the same, with no attempt at anything deeper. They really aren't. They're both entertainment, so it just comes down to how much enjoyment you get out of it. I detest crowds and loud noises, so I wouldn't go to a concert the same way my brother wouldn't drive to the movie. Furthermore, Entitled Dad framed the delay as a failing on my part, telling me to stop using it as an excuse and just accept my punishment. He continually hammered home that I could have made time for it, but I chose not to, refusing to see it as anything but a scheduling issue rather than a priority one. But then came the worst of it. Entitled Dad and my brother spent the next couple of days trying to convince me that no, my mother didn't actually want to see the movie. She was only going because I wanted to, and in the words of my brother, that's why she tolerates the show. They reiterated that I was pressuring her into wasting an entire day just to make me happy. I genuinely felt awful that I might be taking up a bunch of her time to do something that she had no interest in. So I called her up. She spends most of her time recently at the old house she's renovating to rent out, and made it expressly clear to her that she didn't need to do this if she didn't want to, that I could ultimately wait the 6 months for it to hit streaming platforms, and she reconfirmed that she wanted to go see it with me. Now, let me remind you that this is a trip that they're not going on, that doesn't impact them in any way. They just feel the need to override what the people going on the trip want because they're convinced that they know better. But they kept bringing it up with the same points as the planned date drew closer, that I was selfish for going through with this, that I didn't actually care about what she wanted and just wanted to see my movie, that I needed to be the bigger person and tell her to cancel it instead of just giving her the option to do it. They kept telling me that my mother was lying to me, that I shouldn't trust what I heard or saw, but that they were right. And when I didn't have a response to, we're right no matter what she says or what you see, my brother would smugly claim, you don't have a response, you know we're right. And every conversation would end with Entitled Dad incoherently shrieking at me that I need to cancel it and stop being selfish. Even calling up my mother to check again that she wanted to go and her eventually deciding to directly talk to them just got Entitled Dad to go to me immediately afterwards to start another rant. And as always, no new points were made. The day finally came. My mother and I left early to catch the noon screening. I paid for the tickets and gas, and we had a great time. We listened to Overly Sarcastic Productions' hour-long Mummy video on the way over, chatted about fantasy as I tried and failed to explain Warhammer to her, and grabbed some lunch. The movie was, well, an anime movie. Mostly just build up to the final fight scene, but the animation was fantastic, the villain really carried the movie with his sheer, pure evil flair, and my mother enjoyed the romantic subplot between the movie original characters. I would have preferred that they used the female lead of the series more, but that's a criticism shared for all of the movies. We drove back, and while we did get stuck in a traffic pileup that delayed us an hour, we both thought it was a satisfying day. Entitled Dad and my brother still dismissed this whole thing as completely stupid, and my brother in particular made comments about how he'd seen the movie and it was absolutely not worth it. He also says the same thing about the series, but I've seen the merch on his shelves. He's got way more than I do. Seems he doesn't like enjoying the popular thing, even weeks afterwards. At the end of the day, you're 20 years old, you can do whatever the hell you want, and your family doesn't have any control of it. Your mother is also an adult. Even if she's not interested in the movie you're wanting to watch, if she still wants to make the active choice to go see it with you, she just wants to spend time with you. And that's not up to your father to decide otherwise either. If I had to guess, your brother probably really craves your father's attention, and your father's a control freak who can't even comprehend the idea that people enjoy things that are different from what he enjoys. And that fear of mine is evident by the fact that concerts were brought up, and he can understand concerts probably because he enjoys them, but can't understand a goofy movie that you want to go see that your mother also has an interest in. Because the thing is it's not even about the fact your mother wanted to go either. I think they just didn't like the idea that you have interests that are outside of the view of what they also enjoy. Because they started out with the fact that you were originally going to go just take a busing route to get there in the first place. But that was unacceptable because reasons. You're a 20-year-old individual, you can make your own choices. Then when your mother decided to actually be the bridge for you to get there and she wanted to take time out of her day, offering to do so, that was even more unacceptable, and you are now the selfish one for accepting your mother's offer for help? Yeah, that shit doesn't line up, and your dad probably just needs to get over the fact that he can't control your lives anymore. Wagoneer Chump. No, Dad, I will not let you take my house camping. I mentioned in a prior post my narcissist father in the 90s was angry that I was living out of a camper trailer. But not because I was using it for a home, but because I had a camper trailer. He'd wanted one for years, and just never got around to it. On top of his other faults, you can add extreme procrastinator to the list. After I moved into my uncle's backyard with my trailer, my parents eventually found me. They forced their way in and stole my car keys, and then my car. The situation had to be resolved with police. They eventually started demanding I be their free driver again for when they went out drinking, and that didn't go over well either. Eventually, my mother showed up to gripe at me about something else. By then, she was pretending to be over wanting my car, but it was pretty obvious she was not over it. On this particular day, she was mad at me because my father was ranting about my trailer. Apparently, he was pissed that I could just take it anywhere I wanted, and my mother told me she wanted me to get an apartment or something, so my father would shut up about it. I told her no. I was getting way too good of a deal living out of the trailer. My uncle was hardly charging me anything, and I just had to do his yard work on top of the low amount of rent utilities I was paying. There is no way I'd give that up for an apartment. When my parents got their hands on their Vista Cruiser, it could tow things, like my camper could. The Cavalier my father stole from me couldn't tow anything. And the small orange 70s car my mother had used for a while wasn't made for towing either. So when they got another wagon, they got one with a tow hitch. And as soon as they had it, my father wanted to start towing things. And then decided that all of a sudden, he wanted to take my trailer camping. And he treated it like an FYI at first. My father, in his usual attitude, just showed up and bluntly told me he was going to use my trailer to go camping. I refused. And then he tried to order me, as his son, to let him take my trailer camping during the summer. I told him no again. It was literally my home. And I know him. He tried to park my trailer at his house and then never give it back. My father tried to give me his gorilla man act, and I met it head on. Basically, two rednecks chest bumping. But I told him, to his face, that he was not getting my trailer. Ever. And to go out and buy his own. The trailer also had a title in my name, and I wouldn't hesitate to call the police if he took it. My old man, as usual, called me ungrateful, tried gaslighting, and he finally left. My uncle watched practically the whole thing from a window with popcorn. He loved any time he saw my father miserable because My father was the golden child between them, and my uncle was treated horribly when he was growing up. So he was more entertained than anything else when he saw my old man having a tantrum over not getting his way. My father went out and rented a camper trailer for a few days, and then suddenly he didn't like camping anymore. He only wanted to do it because I had a trailer, and it was pretty obvious he wanted to claim it for himself. He honestly believed that anything that was mine was also his, and it took him several years to get it through his thick head that wasn't how things worked. In just about anything he ever borrowed from me after I moved out, I never got those things back. So I didn't trust him with anything. I personally didn't feel the need to do any camping because I was already living out of a trailer, but I gave it a try when I became a parent myself. It honestly wasn't that fun for us. My ex-wife especially hated it, but I wouldn't say she was what ruined the experience. I did take that trailer to a couple family reunions though. I'd saved on motels. I was far from the only one in the family to do that though, and my parents demanded I let them sleep in my spare bunk for free during our mid-90s family reunion. I said hell no, and my parents were humiliated right out of that family reunion anyway, because they doubled down over how I didn't hand over my second car to them, and my mother got slapped by a cousin for being a horrible parent. Honestly, good on OP for standing up for themselves and not letting their dad obviously take their fucking home from them. Like, the question really did boil down to, hey, do you mind being homeless for a few months while I go camping? Assuming he would actually give it back, and considering their previous run-ins, I have low faith in that. On a second note though, does anyone know why so many, narcissistic parents who raise their children believe they have unfettered access to all their belongings? That's just a genuine, thought question that I have that I hope maybe someone can answer. The time an entitled mom tried to reserve my cat for her kid's birthday. So I, 18 female, have a very fluffy, very adorable cat named Mochi. He's basically my little buddy, and he's got one of those Instagram accounts where I post his funny antics, so a lot of people in my neighborhood know about him, including this one mom. I'll call entitled mother, who has a 6-year-old daughter super into cats. I mean, no biggie, right? Well, one day entitled mother messages me on Instagram saying her daughter is absolutely obsessed with Mochi, and asking if I could bring him to her daughter's birthday party the following weekend so the kids can play with him. I politely decline, explaining that Mochi doesn't do well in new environments and would likely hide or freak out around loud kids. Entitled mother's response, well, can you loan him to us for the day? Yes, she literally wanted me to just hand over my cat as if he were a library book or something. She promised they'd take good care of him and even offered to pay me $20 for the inconvenience. I politely refuse again, saying that Mochi isn't up for loan, and I don't think it would be safe or comfortable for him. Entitled mother immediately switches tactics, calling me selfish and accusing me of gatekeeping joy from her daughter. She rants about how it's just one day, and I owe it to the community, because I flaunt Mochi's photos online. Now I'm getting irritated. I tell her that my cat isn't an accessory, and he's definitely not something I owe to the neighborhood. I assumed that's the end of it. Until the day of the party. I'm in my apartment when I hear a loud knock at my door. It's entitled mother and her daughter, with the girl holding a sparkly cat carrier. Entitled mother smiles and says, oh, we came to pick up Mochi. She acts as if we had agreed on this and just expected me to hand him over on demand. Completely stunned, I tell her, I never agreed to this, and I'm not giving you my cat. Entitled mother's smile drops instantly, and she launches into this loud, dramatic rant about how I'm ruining her daughter's special day, and that I shouldn't show off my cat if I don't want to share. Her daughter starts tearing up, and entitled mother gives me this accusing look, like I've just broken her kid's heart on purpose. My neighbor down the hall actually poked her head out to see what was going on, which was enough for entitled mother to grab her daughter and storm off yelling, I'll make sure everyone knows how selfish you are. Later, I found out from mutual friends that she spread a story around the neighborhood about how I baited her daughter with Mochi only to withhold him out of spite. No one really believed her, but she still gives me the dirtiest looks anytime I pass her. Mochi? Completely oblivious and unbothered, living his best life as usual. Edit, the cat has passed away. Sorry, don't ask for cat tax out of respect. I do love my late cat, and I wanted to relive an old memory, so that's why I'm writing this. Okay, I'm just going to come out and say this one is fake, and if you want to argue with it, you might want to wait until I explain why, because, trust me, this one is fake. Let's start with the story on its face value before I dig into the account and the account's post history. Because I just checked, and normally I don't try to do as thorough teardowns and just let you guys know that I have a good hunch it's fake, but sometimes that's not enough. So this time, we're gonna walk through this one together, and I'm gonna go through my reasoning. The edit at the end was the red flag that caused me to go down this rabbit hole. They give different reasons in the comments for why they don't want to post a cat tax, from them deleting the Instagram and not wanting to relive memories of Mochi, to what they posted in the post of, out of respect, they don't want to relive an old memory. So the reasoning changes there, and honestly, with a Instagram cat that's famous, I could understand if maybe they wanted to use the excuse of, oh, well, I don't want someone to reverse image search and then find my information from that. That would be a reasonable request, but that's not the given answer. It makes it feel like pictures of Mochi just never existed. And that's just covering the pet tax. Also, if Mochi had passed away almost 2 years ago, why did you end your entire story with Mochi being completely oblivious and unbothered, living his best life as usual? Also in this story, OP claims to be an 18-year-old female. In the comments, they clarify the story happened 2 years ago, so they would have been 16 at the time. Where are their parents then? Are they living on their own? Were they 16 with an Instagram cat that was paying their bills? And if so, how? Because if Mochi's only known locally in a tight-knit community, then that's not gonna pay enough. Trust me, I would know. Also, according to users before the edits took place, Mochi was referred to by numerous different pronouns through the entire story. But with edits, this is no longer the case. Now let's dig into the poster's history. The poster in question, who I've now had to redact, has a history of going to other subreddits and using ChatGPT to generate stories for karma farming. And for those of you who don't know, karma is essentially just likes, but for Reddit. Not to mention, in their entire 4 years of being on Reddit, they never once mentioned having a cat. But do you know what they do mention? Being a gay high schooler who plays the clarinet. This was actually initially pointed out by someone in the comments. And guess what happened? The moment it was pointed out, the post was mysteriously deleted. Which, below this post here where they mention this Reddit post, there's a deleted comment below that I can only assume was from the OP considering some responses. And because the language of the comments responding to this deleted comment, it almost sounds as though the OP admitted that this story was actually a story from their friend that they had just simply reposted, while at the same time in almost every other post claiming that Mochi is their cat and they are mourning the loss of them. So to cap it off, we have an inconsistent OP here who is both a gay man in the clarinet in a high school marching band, but also an 18-year-old female with a fluffy cat named Mochi, who, before asked for the cat tax, claimed that they were living their best life as usual and completely oblivious and unbothered, but the moment they were asked for any photos, suddenly passed away 2 years ago. And on top of this, has a history of admitting to using ChatGPT to generate stories for karma, and who also, when it's pointed out that they have a past of having conflicting stories, delete the post that ruined their narrative. So, that is why I think this story is fake. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code OZ at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.